Yesterday's live send where I was talking about the anatomy of the chart was technically quite challenging. Therefore, I have recorded a new version where you can hear everything I say, and it's right after this message. Have a great one. Okay, my friends, so here we go with the retake of the anatomy of the astrological chart, part 1. And what you see here is a picture of the rising sign of Capricorn, which is my rising sign. That's the only reason it's there, apart from being attractive and showing the 12 house division, which is one of the things that I will cover today. I will also talk about my choice of house system, because there are over 30 different house systems, and within those you will have to make a choice. And then I will also give you a couple of comparison of charts so you can see in what way the different house systems can show up very, very differently. And that in turn will turn a sun in Cancer into something very different depending on the house and what's going on in the house. But more on that later. What I first want to say is that my choice of house system is in a way rooted in an experience I had when I was about 18. And I was on my way to school, and I knew that I was going to go to the United States and study at the Pratt Institute School of Fine Arts in Brooklyn, New York. So I was walking there on my way to the subway, and I was going through the park. And while I was contemplating my future, what was going on in my life, and I was seeing the people on their way through the park. Some people were also standing at the subway station. This was an outdoor station, so I could see them standing up there where I was heading. And suddenly I had this real epiphany of how I am the center of my own solar system, the center of my universe. That in a way I was the sun. We all know that the sun is the center, but I was the sun in my solar system, and that everyone and everything around me was the rest, the planets, the moons, the everythings. And what I also saw was that this is the same thing for everyone here. I'm not the center of their life. They don't give a damn. They are all walking there within their own private solar system. They are the center in their own universe. So this has apparently carried with me for the rest of my life, and it's still something that I see and think about, that we are all the center of our own lives. And this is how I came to choose my house system as a basis. And what you see here is the chart, the illustration of me or you standing on planet Earth in the middle, because we see it as if the sun is touring around the Earth, and as if the moon is touring around the Earth. And the thing is that it is us that are touring around, traveling through space around the sun. But I choose this system, the house system, that no, not the house system, but the perspective from the Earth, the perspective of geocentric astrology instead of heliocentric astrology. And there is heliocentric astrology, Indian astrology, Jyotish, Vedic astrology, different names, has the sun as the center of their astrology. And it works just as this version that I have chosen works. And the different house systems, they all work. It's just that you have to dig into what works best for you, for your way of thinking and being, and with your scientific or intuitive ideas about how it works, and how you relate to people, how you relate to yourself, and the way you read the chart. Because reading the chart is like reading a language, reading a map, or understanding how time and the clock works, because this is all based on math.
So you see here that we have like 12 houses, and these 12 houses correlate with different parts of life. And in house number 1, it's written self, appearances, beginnings, the body, first impressions, attitude, identity, approach to life. And what I would like to add there is also our survival mechanisms. Because I have Capricorn and Saturn in my first house. And for me, that was really crucial for my survival. I had to use those skills, I could say, from Saturn to be able to survive my childhood. It was not an easy road, I can say. And I'm actually grateful to Saturn, which is considered quite the challenger. And it is. It absolutely is. But then if you move on, you will see that in the second house, we can talk about money, work, income, work ethics, and your own value about yourself. It can also be about food. It can be about how you sustain yourself, how you live. You move on. Let's go to the ninth house, travel, wisdom, philosophy, higher education. So you see, there are a wide range of themes in every house, but they are related in one way or the other. And no matter what planet ends up in a house, that planet will take on the challenges and the blessings of that house. So if you're in the fifth house, it's like romance, love, projects, sports. If you're in the 11th house, it's about groups, friends, your vision about your future, mentors. And it doesn't matter where the sun lands or Venus lands, it will always take on the theme of the house. And that is one of the reasons why a planet like the sun and your sun sign can appear so different, because it will end up in a different house. What is also good to know about the houses is that they have different modes. And the first 3 are angular, succedent, and cadent. And then you move on to the next quadrant, number 2 in this image. And it's the same thing, 1, 2, 3. And in the third, 1, 2, 3, angular, succedent, cadent. And this is also something that adds to the nuances and the layers of how you interpret a planet or a sign. So as you can see already, probably, you realize that, oh, there's much more to it than I thought, or than people say. Because of course, it's not that 1/12 of the population on Earth will be exactly the same. We have all noticed that that's not the case. And sometimes you can see, okay, Cancer, it's not, I don't relate to the sign very much, if it's like your own. It can depend on when you were born, together with what other planets are where and how they have been positioned. So perhaps you can identify more or less with that particular sign. Also good to know is that they have like different characters. So the angular one is like more, I would say the angular houses have more say. That is number 1, number 4, 7, and number 10. But that's all for now. I'm not going to go deep into this. So we have the 10 traditional planets. Actually, there are 7 traditional planets, but these 10 planets are the ones that we use. You can add a lot more to this, but these are the planets that are like the base. So it's Sun, which of course is not a planet, and then we have Mercury, Venus, Earth. I put that in parentheses because it's really about the moon, and you can't see that on this picture. And the moon is not a planet either. But for us, standing on Earth and being the center, they all look like planets, and we call them planets in astrology. And then you have Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And Pluto is that tiny little thing way out there. And if you imagine that a small planet doesn't have a lot of impact, I can tell you that Pluto is very intensely, profoundly impacting us right now. It was and is a big player in what happened 2020 and what is going on with all the deconstruction and chaos in many ways that is happening on the planet right now. So a small planet is not the same thing as small impact, on the contrary. So let's talk about the house systems and my choice. I started out with Placidus because most people do start out with Placidus, and it's the most frequently used right now. I will not go into the history of that, but there is a history behind it. There's a history behind a lot of the things that I'm talking about here. But as you can see, if you look at Placidus, you can see that there is a red arrow to the left, or there are like two red arrows within that pink circle. So in house 10, there is nothing, nobody's there. And in house 11, you see 3 planets. 2 of them are connected with that red arrow. And then there is one that is connected to that green glyph, the symbol of Capricorn. So this means that within house 11, you have 2 signs. It also makes it a little interesting about whom is ruling this house, because every house has a ruler. And when I started to look into to this and choose my house system, I did go between 5 different house systems, and the whole sign was one of them. But I didn't know enough, and what was evident for me with Placidus is that it did say something about me psychologically, who I am and what I can see in myself. I did at that point not feel as at home with the whole sign. But then I learned that every sign has a ruler. And it was when I started to look into the rulerships that I actually changed my mind and went over to whole sign. And that was during my education with the astrology, the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, because she was teaching from the whole sign system, and that made all the difference for me. So if you also, again, look at Placidus and you see in this 5th house, you have 3 characters, the Moon, Chiron, and Venus. But all of those have moved into the 6th house in the whole sign system. And in the 6th house, the Moon is the ruler. But in the 5th house, Mercury is the ruler. I'm not going to confuse you too much, but you can see that it becomes very different. And what I want to make very clear is that it's not better or worse. It's, of course, some astrologers will say that, but most astrologers have such respect for the choice that other astrologers make. I have never seen in any other field so much reverence for your colleagues and listening to what they say and how they say it and what they convey, even though they can come from different schools. They use different house systems. Someone might be a predictive astrologer, someone might be a financial astrologer, someone else might be a more intuitive astrologer. And intuition is, in this case, is not about making it up. It's something different. We're not going to go in that direction either. But you make a choice and then you use that and you learn that and you evolve that. And when you feel like, now I know this, then you can move on if you want to. And some people do change house system, as I did, but I had not come that far. I know people that changed house system after having been very successful astrologers for like 15 years and then come to a new place. So that is just very shortly my story of my choice. I wanted to have a clear and evident picture of who is ruling what house. The chart ruler, the house rulers, and how they are interacting with each other. And in the left, the Placidus version, that became much more confusing for me. And I like clarity. So let's look at a couple of charts. This is the Crown Princess of Sweden, Victoria. And as you can see, she has the sun in the 6th house in Cancer. The 6th house is about your daily chores. It's about work and routine. It's about your health and subordinates and also small pets. And together with the sun is the moon. And the moon is the ruler of the 6th house. It's not really the ruler of the 6th house, it's the ruler of Cancer. So in this particular case, it's the ruler of the 6th house. And this also means that the sun has to listen to the moon. Because the moon is the one who decides who is in charge in this house. And also, as you can see, there are like empty houses, which is like good to know. It's like empty houses. They look empty, but when you have an assigned house ruler, there will always be someone who is in charge of that house. It's never left empty. So if you go to house number 2, which is Pisces, and the ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in house 5, which means that it rules house 2 from house 5. And actually it has 2 rules. It's also Neptune, and Neptune is over in house 11. So in house 5 and 11, house number 2 has the rulers, and those 2 are creating the atmosphere, so to speak, for house 2. So she is, I would say, because Cancer is the house of, not the house of, the sign of nurture, of taking care of other people, making sure people have food, feel good, comfortable, protectiveness. And considering her position, I would think that she's a good boss, that she takes care of her personnel and the people around her, that they feel seen and heard, that she doesn't like walk all over people. And that is, for me, very Cancerian, considering where she is at her work, at her job. This is not her career. This is what she does in every day. What you can also see in this picture is that you have the glyphs. So if you don't know the glyphs, they're like, and the signs further down, you see Aries has one symbol, Cancer has its own, and then we have Libra, Capricorn. The order always goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. These are the glyphs and the names, and then you go further up and you will see the elements and the sign modes, and there's also house modes. Those I was talking about before, the angular, the succedent, and the cadent. And there are polarities. I prefer to use other words. I prefer to say more active or taking initiative, or because when you use the words masculine and feminine, people think men and women, and that's simply not how it works. But as you can see, the princess has more masculine traits, more initiative, more moving forward, more taking action than the feminine ones. It's not a very big difference, but it's still there. And then you can also see in the chart points further down that there are points that are not planets. The Chiron, the nodes, the ascendant and descendant, midheaven, and the Imam Coeli. Those are also important points within the chart. But let's move on to the next one. This is Lord Mountbatten, and he was born 1900, just a couple of days after my grandfather, actually. But you can see that his sun is in the 1st house. It's still Cancer. But it's not alone. It's there with both Venus and Mercury and the ascendant. And this tells me that even though I never met this guy and I never read about him and I know nothing about him, that he and his person, who he was had more say in how he presented himself to the world than for the crown princess. Himself, he was important, but his son is not cooperating in the same way with the moon, because his moon is, so to speak, hiding in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of seclusion, the house of hidden enemies, the house of taking a rest, meditating. So it rules the first house from its position of the 12th house. This means that this kind of Cancer, with all this, talking out Mercury, relating the attitude towards beauty and food and the good things of life, Venus, and the ascendant, which is, as I said, among other things, has to do with how do I survive in this world, how do I present myself and introduce myself. All these things are in the first house. So he will come out probably in a way more like the idea of a Cancerian person, but more, how should I say this? How should I say this? Yeah, because it Cancer is a cardinal sign. Okay, I'll go here. Cancer is a cardinal sign, and the cardinal signs are more active. They move forward, and when you have a cardinal sign as the first one, it also means that the first, the fourth, the seventh, and the 10th are all cardinal. And those 4 houses are the most impactful houses of the whole chart. Those 4 houses together. So when they are cardinal, which they are in his case, they exude a more active way outwards. While, as with the princess, she had fixed signs, which makes her more firm, slower to change and make decisions. So these are also things that makes it very impactful. Where in the house, what kind of house, what energy does this house have, and what energy does the sign have? When you get all these things together, the sun sign, whatever it is, Cancer, Capricorn, Pisces, they can appear very, very different. And as you can see, the feminine side, so to speak, for Lord Mountbatten is stronger than the masculine side. And with Crown Princess Victoria, it was the opposite way around. So we are approaching the end here today. Everyone has everything in their chart, and it is how all these everythings are distributed that reveals the story. And the first chart up to the left here, Marie Antoinette, she was born 1755. You can see that even though some of these planets had not been discovered yet, most of them, of those way out on the other side of Saturn, but they were still there. They have always been there. So we can still place them in her chart and see the pattern in the middle. You see that pattern is uniquely hers. If we go to Venus Williams, and then check out, you can see that her first house has Libra. And the transit of the episode that I was saying, episode 15, also had Libra in the first house. But as you can see, the pattern between the planets for Venus Williams and the transits of the episode are very, very different. And it is those patterns that create the story and the difference. And then we have Paul McCartney, and that is the same thing. I just wanted to show that, we have 4 different charts, and they all expose very different aspect patterns, and we will talk about aspects later on in the series. So if you want the same kind of picture, I can make the calculation for you, and you can see as the one with the princess and the lord, where you can see the modalities and the elements. And for being able to do this, I need the date and exact time of birth, and it's not guessing, and also asking your mother might not be the right thing, because my mother was messing it up, because women giving birth, they have different ideas about timing, and they're busy with other stuff than looking at the watch. Location and country, of course, to know where everything was in relation to where you were taking your first breath on planet Earth. And then I will send you the image. So send me a PM about that. And I also want to point out that it's not a chart reading. You will get the image of what your pattern looks like. And if you want to work with me, that's a different story. If you want a chart reading, contact me. We can talk about that too. But I can send you a calculation for free. And this is the last picture. We are meeting next Wednesday again. I think that's the 3rd of August. And we will talk about the anatomy of the astrological chart part 2 and go through the ascendant and descendant and the MCIC, which is the midheaven, and the Imam Queli, as I was mentioning before, and also give a little look into the modalities and the elements. So follow Love is a State. That's the hashtag for my life sense. Also follow Astrology for Money and Career and hashtag Astro Guidance. So I thank you for listening in and getting a little more clarity and hearing what I say. And I hope to meet you very soon again. Bye for now.